For more than 6 years, he played the grieving husband, the trembling voice on television, eyes that filled with tears at exactly the right moments. His pleas echoed across Ireland. "Please, just come home." Reporters comforted him, neighbors prayed for him, and the country watched with sympathy. But each time Richard Satchwell walked down the narrow stairs of his house in Youghal, his shoes tapped against the very concrete that concealed his wife. Tina Satchwell had never really left home. She was there all along, buried beneath the floor where he stood, while the man who put her there begged cameras for mercy. He insisted he'd never hurt her. "I never once lifted a finger on Tina," he told interviewers. "The most I've ever done is give her a tight cuddle, loving the bones off her." He swore one day she'd turn up, call a relative, prove his innocence. He said it'll all come out, and time will show I did nothing wrong. But time would show something else entirely. Tina Satchwell was 45 when she vanished in March 2017. She'd been born Tina Dignan on the 30th of November 1972 in Fermoy, County Cork, a small town surrounded by green hills and river mist. She was petite, 5'4", with shoulder-length blonde hair and striking blue eyes that caught every bit of light. A small Tweety bird tattoo rested on her chest, a detail her friends never forgot. People described her as bright, gentle, and easy to love, someone whose warmth filled a room. But her early life was marked by confusion and loss. Raised by her grandmother, Florence Dignan, Tina grew up believing Florence was her mother. When she was old enough for her confirmation and went looking for her birth certificate, she discovered the truth. Her biological mother was Mary Collins, a woman she had always thought was her sister. The revelation cut deep, yet Tina remained devoted to the grandmother who had given her a home and affection. Florence's steady care shaped her. Kind-hearted, forgiving, trusting, sometimes too trusting, fashion became her joy. Friends said she had an expensive eye, always drawn to quality fabrics and bright jewelry. Her home brimmed with clothing racks, some pieces worn once, others still tagged. She loved buying, styling, and reselling at car boot sales across County Cork. Those weekend markets weren't just business, they were her social world. Her animals were family. The 2 chihuahuas, Ruby and Heidi, and a talkative parrot named Valentine filled her quiet days with life. She called them her babies. People in Fermoy often saw her walking the tiny dogs in matching outfits, smiling even on cold mornings. Tina loved the sea. When she and her husband moved to Youghal in 2016, she fell in love with the coastal air, the sound of waves, the chance for a new start. But Youghal also isolated her from the friends who once surrounded her. Those who knew Tina well said her confidence masked a private shyness. She could be bubbly one moment and withdrawn the next, preferring the safety of home to crowded gatherings. Her longtime doctor described her as healthy, open, and mentally well. There were no signs of instability, nothing to explain a woman simply vanishing. Still, she carried scars. In 2012, her brother Tom died by suicide. The loss devastated her. 2 years later, she bought Ruby, her first chihuahua, to fill the emptiness. "That little dog saved her," her sister would later say. Tina met Richard Satchwell on the 3rd of March, 1989 in Cobb, near Leicester, England. She was 17. He was 22. A lorry driver with a big personality. He told his brother the same night, "I'm going to marry that girl." And he did. Richard Satchwell liked to call Tina his beautiful Irish rose. To him, she was proof he'd done something right in life, someone far above his league. They married 2 years later, on Tina's 20th birthday, November 30th, 1991, in Oldham, England. But romance came with isolation. Richard's family were anti-Irish and refused to attend the wedding, forcing him to choose between them and his bride. He chose Tina and never spoke to his mother again. At first, that devotion looked like loyalty. Later, it would feel like ownership. Richard was obsessive. He memorized her clothing sizes, her favorite meals, even the pattern of freckles on her shoulders. He said he drew her baths every night, dried her, massaged her with baby oil. He described these routines as proof of love. To others, they sounded like control disguised as care. Lorraine Howard, Tina's half-sister, would one day tell investigators that Richard was possessive to the point of paranoia. He disliked Tina's friends, criticized every new acquaintance until she stopped seeing them. He didn't want her to have anyone else, Lorraine said. He wanted her world to be him. During the 1990s, the couple returned to Ireland, settling in Fermoy. Outwardly, they seemed comfortable, though Richard had frequent run-ins with the law, 14 convictions between 1999 and 2004, mostly theft, welfare fraud, and disorder. He even served a month in Cork prison. By 2016, they sold their Fermoy property and bought a small terraced house at 3 Grattan Street in Ewell for €52,000. The move, meant as a new chapter, isolated Tina even further. In Fermoy, she'd been known and loved. In Ewell, she was almost invisible. Neighbors recalled seeing her rarely, usually beside Richard. Some described him as polite but intense. Others said he never let her speak for long. The couple lived on social welfare benefits, always struggling to keep their account from overdraft. Yet despite financial strain, Tina found small happiness, her pets, her clothes, and the quiet hope that things might improve. Sunday, March 19, 2017. That morning, Tina and Richard attended a car boot sale in Carrick-Touhill, about 35 kilometers away. Friends remembered her cheerful, talking about outfits and perfumes she'd bought that day. When her friend John Keoghan teased, "Don't go meeting another man," she laughed. "I have one man only," she replied. Those would be her last recorded words. 4 days later, on March 24th, Richard Satchwell walked into Fermoy Garda station to report his wife missing. Instead of contacting local officers in Ewell, he drove 43 kilometers north. Garda Connor Gately later described him as calm and matter-of-fact, not overly emotional. Richard explained that Tina had made breakfast with him on Monday morning. He claimed she'd asked him to drive to Aldi in Dungarvan, 30 kilometers away, to buy fish and parrot food. When he returned 2 hours later, she was gone, along with 2 suitcases and €26,000 in cash supposedly stored in their attic. He told Garda he'd waited to report it because he thought she needed a bit of space. At first, the case seemed like a domestic dispute. People leave, they come back. There was no immediate sign of harm. Weeks passed, then months, and Richard Satchwell stepped into the spotlight. Between June 2017 and March 2018, he appeared on every major Irish news outlet: RTE, TV3, Cork's Red FM, Ireland AM. 14 recorded interviews in total. Each time, he cried on cue, "Tina, come home. No one's angry. I just want you safe." To the public, it was heartbreak. To investigators, it began to look rehearsed. When invited to take a lie detector test on live radio, Richard agreed, then suddenly declined, saying he felt unwell. Meanwhile, his behavior at home grew stranger. Just 10 days after Tina vanished, he texted her cousin Sarah Howard, asking if she wanted their large chest freezer. When she declined, he advertised it online. "Free to take away. Works perfectly, just needs a clean." By late April, he was selling Tina's belongings at the very markets she had loved. Dresses, handbags, boots, all gone. When friends asked why, he said she was sick in England, or visiting relatives, or staying somewhere for treatment. Every story changed. Inside 3 Grattan Street, the last dress Tina ever bought, the black one from Carrick-Touhill, still hung on a door unworn. June 7, 2017, Garda conducted their first search of the house. Sergeant John Shea believed something criminal might have happened. With a search warrant, officers spent 12 hours examining every room. Photographs taken that day showed new plasterboard under the stairs, a freshly built red brick wall, and unpainted steps above it. Forensic scientist Dr. Edward Connolly used luminol to test for traces of blood. None appeared. No stains in the living room, on the stairs, or in Richard's car. Without physical evidence, officers couldn't justify breaking the concrete floor. The house, however, told its own story. Dirty dishes, animal waste, clutter everywhere. The pets barked constantly. Something about the place felt wrong. But with no body, no crime could be proven. Over the next few years, Garda searches spanned the coastline of County Cork. The water unit combed Ewell Harbour. The Army scoured woodland at Castlemartyr. 60-plus reported sightings of Tina came in from around Ireland and England. None were real. More than 400 lines of inquiry, 170 witness statements, 100 hours of CCTV footage, and nothing. For a time, it seemed the case might never move forward. Then, in August 2021, everything changed. Superintendent Anne-Marie Toomey, newly appointed as Senior Investigating Officer, ordered a full cold case review. Detective Dave Kelleher led the incident room. Together, they started from zero, re-examining every interview, every file, every device seized back in 2017. When Kelleher opened the old laptop found in Richard Satchwell's home, he found a digital trail frozen in time. On March 24, 2017, at 9:08 p.m., the same night Richard reported Tina missing, someone had searched quicklime and water reaction. They even watched a YouTube video demonstrating how quicklime accelerates decomposition and suppresses odor. That single search turned suspicion into certainty. Phone data added more. CCTV showed Richard collecting welfare at Ewell Post Office at 11:10 a.m. the morning he claimed to be in Dungarvan. Mobile location data proved he was home from 11:10 to 12:50. The alibi collapsed. By early 2022, Superintendent Toomey concluded that Tina Satchwell was no longer alive and had likely died unlawfully. Yet without a body, the case couldn't proceed to prosecution. That would soon change. In September 2023, forensic archaeologist Dr. Nia McCullough reviewed the file. Her report noted that offenders in domestic homicide cases often hide victims close to home, sometimes within a few meters. She examined the 2017 photos of the house and flagged the new brickwork beneath the stairs as structurally inconsistent. She recommended a targeted, invasive search using ground-penetrating radar and cadaver dogs. 1 month later, Garday acted on that advice. On the evening of October 10, 2023, officers and forensic teams arrived at 3 Grattan Street. Richard Satchwell was arrested at 5 p.m. on suspicion of murder. As he sat in custody, the team began excavating the house he'd lived in alone for 6 years. A Springer Spaniel named Fern, trained to detect human remains, led the search. Within minutes, she focused on the area beneath the stairs. Investigators pulled back the flooring and found a rectangular patch of newer, lighter concrete. At 9 p.m., the jackhammers started. Beneath 60 centimeters of hardened cement, they uncovered black plastic sheeting. The search stopped immediately. Forensic experts moved in. The next morning, a human hand emerged from the soil. After 2,396 days, Tina Satchwell had finally been found. If stories like this matter to you, if you believe every missing person deserves their truth told, please subscribe to Unsolved True Crimes, UTC. We uncover real cases the world tried to forget. By noon that day, Richard Satchwell faced the charge he had evaded for more than 6 years. The man who once cried for cameras was now accused of the very tragedy he'd performed for. At 11:30 a.m. on October 12, 2023, Assistant State Pathologist Dr. Margot Bolster stepped into the narrow house on Grattan Street. The forensic excavation had reached its most delicate stage. The body, carefully wrapped in black plastic sheeting, was slowly uncovered from beneath the stairs. Around her neck lay the faint outline of a dressing gown belt. By noon, as rain streaked down the windows, detectives walked a few blocks to a bus stop in Ewell. There, they found Richard Satchwell waiting alone, his jacket zipped to the collar, hands shaking slightly. He didn't resist when they arrested him for the murder of his wife. That evening, he was charged. When asked to respond, his answer was unsettlingly cryptic. "Not guilty," he murmured, as though unsure it could serve him better. At Cork University Hospital, dental records confirmed what everyone feared. The remains were Tina's. She had been buried under that staircase for more than 6 years. Her Tweety bird tattoo, faded but still visible, was found on her chest. In the pocket of her dressing gown was her wallet, with her public service card and store loyalty cards still inside. She had never left home at all. When questioned, Richard finally spoke, but his story changed completely. He said Tina's death was an accident. He claimed he had come in from the shed and found her at the base of the stairs, scraping plasterboard with a chisel. He said she flew at him, swinging the chisel, trying to strike him. He said he fell backward and, in self-defense, grabbed her dressing gown belt and pulled until she went limp. He said he held her for half an hour, crying, as their dogs Ruby and Heidi licked her hands. He said he couldn't bear to look at her body, so he left her on the couch for a day or two. When the dogs kept going to her, he moved her into the chest freezer in the shed, the same freezer he'd offered to give away just days later. He said it wasn't plugged in, that he only used it for storage. Afterward, he began to dig, under the stairs, beneath their sitting room floor. He said he worked from morning until night, digging through the sandy soil until his hands bled. The grave measured nearly 84 centimeters deep, unusually deep for a domestic burial. He told Garday that on March 26th, Mother's Day Sunday, he lifted Tina's body from the freezer and wrapped her in the black plastic they'd once used at car boot sales. He said he placed her face down, still wearing her pajamas and dressing gown. He described tying the belt to keep her wrapped and said he wanted to bury her with dignity. He told investigators he'd tried to buy roses but could only find tulips. He tossed them into the grave before sealing it. He claimed he placed her wedding ring in the pocket of her robe, so she'd know the hand that killed her was also the hand that loved her. The ring was never found. He said he filled the grave with soil, poured over it a layer of concrete nearly a meter thick, and then built a red brick wall to conceal the space. He added plasterboard to cover the area and painted over it to blend in. And then he went on living, eating, sleeping, giving interviews above the woman he'd buried. For more than 6 years, the world saw Richard Satchwell as a man broken by grief. He stood before cameras, begged for information, and claimed to be haunted by questions. But behind those tears, there had been none. Every news appearance became a performance. He told one reporter, "I never lifted a finger to her in nearly 30 years together." He repeated that line so often, it became a mantra. But the evidence spoke louder. The trial began in April 2025 at the Central Criminal Court in Dublin. Journalists filled the seats. Tina's family sat quietly in the front row, faces pale but resolute. Richard pleaded not guilty to murder. Over 23 days, more than 50 witnesses took the stand. The prosecution, led by Gerardine Small, painted Richard as a manipulative, controlling man whose charm masked deep cruelty. She told the jury he was an arch-manipulator, brazen to the very end. The prosecution laid out the digital evidence first. The quicklime search on his laptop, made just hours after reporting Tina missing. The phone records that proved his lies about leaving the house. The CCTV footage that placed him at the local post office, not 30 kilometers away as he had claimed. Then came the most haunting evidence of all, his own televised interviews. 14 clips were played to the jury. Richard and everyone, pleading with trembling hands, "Tina, please come home." To the public, those had been moments of heartbreak. To the jury, they were moments of deception. The defense, led by Brendan Green, argued lack of intent. He said Richard panicked after an accidental death, made terrible decisions out of fear. Richard himself chose not to testify. But the forensic facts told a story of intent and concealment. Dr. Bolster, the state pathologist, testified that there were no fractures on Tina's skeleton, no evidence she'd been attacked with a weapon, as Richard claimed. The position of the belt, wound tightly and unnaturally around her body, suggested she'd been restrained, not defended against. And the quicklime search, carried out just hours after her death, spoke to planning, not panic. On Tuesday, May 27, 2025, the jury began deliberating. They spent just over 9 hours across 3 days. At 12:25 p.m. on Friday, they returned. The four-person rose, guilty of murder, unanimous. Mr. Justice Paul McDermott imposed the mandatory sentence, life imprisonment. It had taken 8 years from Tina's disappearance to reach that moment. Outside the courthouse, cameras rolled once again. But this time, the tears belonged to the people who had loved Tina, her cousin Sarah Howard, her sister Lorraine, and the friends who never stopped searching. Sarah spoke softly to the press. Tina was kind, loving, gentle. She adored her animals, and that's how we want her remembered. Today, we finally have justice. Those words carried across Ireland, across years of waiting, across every false sighting and sleepless night. That October night in 2023, after the discovery, hundreds had gathered outside 3 Grattan Street with candles and dogs in tow. It wasn't just grief. It was a vigil of love for a woman whose compassion had outlived her silence. When her ashes were finally divided, half were laid with her brother Tom, the other half with her grandmother Florence, the 2 people who had loved her without condition. The house on Grattan Street still stands. To passers-by, it looks like any other terraced home, but for those who know, it's something else entirely. A quiet memorial to secrets, to silence, and to the persistence of truth. Superintendent Anne-Marie Toomey, whose persistence reopened the case, rarely spoke about her role publicly, but her colleagues knew what drove her. Detail, precision, and the belief that even the smallest inconsistency can expose the largest lies. It was her fresh review in 2021 that changed everything. She saw what others missed: the unpainted stairs, the brick wall, the untouched laptop, and refused to let the case die. Her dedication brought Tina home. The story of Tina Satchwell isn't just about a crime. It's about what happens when truth is buried, literally and figuratively. For 6 years, people pitied Richard Satchwell. They saw a man broken by loss. But behind the tears was control. Behind the grief was deception. The real tragedy is that Tina's voice was silenced long before her life ended. She'd been isolated, gaslighted, made small in her own home. Her world narrowed until only one person remained in it, and he made sure it stayed that way. But even in silence, truth has a sound. It echoes through the cracks of concrete. It reverberates in the persistence of investigators, the memories of family, and the resilience of a community that refused to stop looking. Tina's case became a reminder that justice doesn't always come quickly, but when it does, it speaks for those who can't. Today, Tina Satchwell is remembered not as a missing woman, but as a woman whose truth could no longer be hidden. Her smile, the same one seen in every photograph, is no longer a symbol of mystery. It's a symbol of peace. She is at rest with her brother and grandmother, far from the house that trapped her. And the world finally knows what happened under those stairs. If this story moved you, share it, so Tina's name, her truth, and her memory are never forgotten. Subscribe to Unsolved True Crimes, UTC, to follow more real documentaries that give voice to the silenced and justice to those the world almost forgot.